Yes, good morning, Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boy Dave. We also have Drew and Steve as well in the house. And for the next hour and a bit or whatever it is, we're going to be here previewing today's game and all the talking points around Tottenham Hotspur. So if you have anything you want to add, any questions you want to get in and you want to get asked, make sure you put them in the chat as we move along. Let's welcome some early people in. Of course, we've got Drew and Steve first in. And by the way, guys, fair play to these guys. You know, it's, 4 a.m. where they are? And they're sitting here wanting to shoot the shit with me ahead of the game. So massive appreciation to the two boys. And guys, make sure you show the appreciation in the comments. So guess what I'm saying is, don't be dicks and go after them in the comments if they say something you don't like. Appreciate that. It's 4 o'clock in the morning and give the boys an opportunity. Big up, Bar Pants. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. We also have Sales Demon. Morning, chaps. This is a massive day for Spurs. With the negativity in the fan base at the moment, we really must find a way to get a result today. I think we can do it. I'll say 2-1 Spurs. And, I think you're absolutely spot on, lad. I think, with the failed transfer of Eze and all that sort of stuff, I think today, if we could just get a result, it doesn't even matter if it's a point, just get a point on the board and let's move forward. I do think it would do well to give people a bit more belief in Thomas Frank, but mainly this squad, I suppose, is the big thing where fans need to show a bit more belief, including people like me. But I think a result against Man City would drag people like me along the way. We've got Cyprus Spurs. Morning, guys, and chat. Come on, you Spurs. We also have Al Dante in the house. We will win a Rambam. If Rambam scores today, I'm going to go crazy. I absolutely love Rambam. We also have Joe Trimboli in the house. It's a good evening from Oz and Coys. Big up, John. Joe, hopefully you're keeping well. Whereabouts in Australia you're from? Shushamp Bushal, good to see you, buddy. Says, big up, boys. Good morning from Woolwich. Good to see you, my man. And we also have Wayne Bonner in the house. Just, Wayne, you're always up early, man. You must never sleep. Says, good morning, everyone. Hope you're all well and good. I fancy Spurs to get a well-earned 2-1 win today. Well, I really do hope so. And then we've also got AD in the house, says, tough game. And then we also have Joe says, Melbourne. Nice. It's winter time over there at the minute, I believe. How are you enjoying the cold, my man? I know you Aussies ain't used to the cold. And then we have 23 Aquamarine. Morning, lads. Good to see you. You actually a Marine? Let me know. And then said Iceman says, big up, Dave, and the rest of the panel. Also, everyone in the chat. Big up, Iceman. Good morning to you. Guys, I do get curious. Well, you know what's people's breakfast on a build-up for a big game like today? Put it in the chat. Let me know. But, guys, let's get going. Drewski, we'll start with you, my man. I mean, Spurs have beaten Man City more times than any other opponent in the Premier League era under Guardiola. I think we've won 2 out of our last 4 games, at the Etihad. And I think Man City have only won 4 of their last 12 against us. What do you think makes this fixture such a thorn for Man City? Because no matter what state we go in, I remember when we had Emerson and Davies at centre-back, we took a 3-3 result out of there. We just seem to be the bogey team. We seem to get a result against Man City. What is it?
It's a good question, Dave. I'm really not too sure.
Probably the wrong one to start with, hey?
Yeah. Well, but I mean, in times gone by, we've had the mighty Kane and the mighty Son up front. So, one or the other. So they seem to have been a thorn in their side. Sonny always used to love scoring against City. So I genuinely don't know. I don't know. They just seem to raise their levels a bit. I mean, even in the game, there was that game where we were 2 up, wasn't it, under Conte, and I think they ended up coming back and beating us. But even then, the first half there, we were just sort of all over them. I'm really not sure what it is, because of any fixtures, you would think that there would be, at least one other that would bring this out of them, but it just doesn't seem to be the case. They seem to be shrinking violence in some instances, and then this one they seem to come to the fore. So it's a great question, Dave. I'm not sure what it is. I just for the sake of the general atmosphere at the moment, though, I'm hoping like you that we can just get something today, or the boys can put on a performance and we can look like we're going in the right direction, and it's not panic stations after 90 minutes, right?
No, look, it'd be absolutely huge. Look, you did mention Son and Kane, and look, that they were a huge thorn in City's side, and that having quality players like that, I suppose, does go a long way to getting you results in these sort of games. But Steve, we have picked up results without Kane, and without Son as well. So, I mean,
right. Well, there's a litmus test
for Guardiola.
Well, they're the litmus test, right? They're the team that's essentially won everything over the last 10 years, right? They're the ones that put the Premier League flag on the global stage, right? So, especially when you have a high-profile coach like Pep Guardiola, and he just continues to defy the odds by winning literally everything that comes his way. And so for Spurs, when you're going up against a team like that, it's not just about showing up and saving face. It's about trying to take points off of them. And sure enough, I remember last season was a perfect example coming off the international break, the FIFA break, coming into the Etihad, and nobody even last year with Man City not even being the best. I'm sure a lot of people thought coming into that match that it was going to be a long day, and sure enough, we pick up like what, a 4-0 beatdown of them, right? It seems like Manchester City is the team that we generally just show up for. You try to save face against Liverpool, Arsenal, and the rest of those, but for whatever reason, not only do they show up, but they just seem to be able just to play well and come out of left field and take points from them. It's actually quite incredible, to be honest with you.
I'm just starting to wonder, is it because we end up going against Man City playing a bit more compact, a bit more defensively, and look to hit on the break? And is that maybe just what we are suited to playing? Is that maybe we're better at playing that way than trying to play what many would say is the Spurs way, entertaining football, trying to go at the teams, be brave. Look, it's interesting, but nonetheless, I love being a thorn in Guardiola's side. To be honest with you, as good of as Mandry is, I think, his football has bored me for a long, long time. It's all just possession. I prefer possession with a bit of intent. And I'm glad we can be a thorn in his side. I've watched his teams destroy teams in years gone by. But when it comes to Tottenham Hotspur, I don't know what it is, but they do struggle. They really do struggle against us. And I think it's at the point where maybe they overthink it. Maybe they overanalyze it, because we just pick up results. And maybe that's a part of it. George Caridas, the City in my ACCA today. Sorry, lads. That's poor form, man, especially considering you're a Spurs fan. That's poor form. But I do wish you the best of luck with the ACCA. J-Mac, top of the morning, Davey Lad, Drewski, and guest it's Steve. He says, sorry, morning, Steve. Good to see you, J-Mac.
It's all good, J-Mac.
We've got Martin Richards. Good morning, my Spurs family. Big up and Coys. Let's have the faith in Thomas Frank. We trust. Big up, my man. He's Michael. I'm just going to say Michael. He says 30 degrees in Darwin. Nice. Well, that's fucking. I wouldn't survive in that weather, honestly. I'd have to move to the Arctic. I really would. Sushant says sausage rolls with orange juice. It's not a bad breakfast. Spurs to win 2-0. We also have Stefan Blois in the house. Spurs that night in Bilbao. Arsenal that night. We beat we beat Spurs to a transfer. Absolutely spot on. Mark P says, morning all. Come on, you Spurs. Great to see you in the house. Then we've got Sales Demon in the house. Dave, I'm really excited about the signing of Nico Paz. I think he's a class act in the 10. Do you think we can get it over the line? Do you know what? We were on Drew's channel last night, Spurs Diehards, and the show that Drew runs there. And Nico Paz's name came up along with El Kudus. Now, look, I'm going to be honest. I'm not just going to say one thing on another channel and come here and butter you guys up and tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to be consistent. Look, for me, the kid's only 20 years of age. El Kudus, 21 years of age. And this is my problem. We need quality. We need players ready to come in and produce for the here and now. Paz looks good. He looks like a terrific player. But coming to the Premier League is a different ballgame altogether. And I just think we're at the point. You've missed out on Gibbs White. You've missed out on Ezeb. Two players that really would have made a massive difference on the pitch. Paz, El Kudus, they're not ready to come in and make that massive impact. And for me, I'll be honest, I'm at the point, I don't want to keep clogging up this squad with youngsters with potential. I think you're going to get yourself into a sticky situation next summer if we keep doing this, where you've got a load of players that you've spent money on, you don't know what to do with them. They're not good enough to be here. Do you sell them? Do you put them out on loan? I think it's just creating a bigger headache. I'm at the point, if the right player ain't there, don't sign anyone. Right. I'd rather bring back more Donnelly, players like that, and give them their opportunity who are in around the same age. To back me up, sign Matisse Tell last year. I'd argue Mikey Moore had a better campaign. Mikey Moore had more impact on games when he started than Matisse Tell, and I'm just uncomfortable to keep going down this route. I'm not saying he's not a good player. He doesn't have, fantastic ability or a chance of becoming a really top player. Of course he does. I'm just very hesitant on spending much more money on some youngsters when I know that this squad needs proven quality. And I've been saying it for 2 years now, and that's why I'm very hesitant of going after more youngsters. Let me know how you think about that, my man. I mean, look, we'll give you two guys a say on this as well. You know, Drew, I don't think I really heard your opinion too much on it last night. So, you know, we'll get yours and Stevie's opinion because, look, in fairness, Thomas Frank also said, let me know how you feel about this, that he doesn't want anyone that doesn't want to be here. Same as Ange Postecoglou, he sort of said the same. But I'm starting to wonder, like, obviously that's a great line to throw out, but I'm starting to wonder, like, does that sort of limit the transfers available to you then, you know, in terms of quality and stuff like that, but coming out and saying things like that? Because there is an element where you sort of have to persuade these guys, you know, to sign on the dotted line. But look, we'll start with you on this one, Drewski.
I was just going over his stats because I'll be honest with you, you know, I can't sit here and say I'd start waxing lyrical about the kid or anything because I don't really know much about him. I mean, 35 matches last year, 6 goals, 8 assists. I mean, for a young kid starting out his career in a top league, that's not too bad. But you've got to, it's horses for courses, right? He's the only expectation I would imagine that's on him at the moment is the expectation of himself, his family, and the expectation from Como that you're a young player. You just got to go out there and do your thing. And I just don't know, you know, if we were somewhat flying, if Thomas Frank had been here a year, if we already had somebody in that position and this kid was coming in as an understudy, I could see that being a scenario where I'm like, okay, this looks quite exciting. When I look at the scenario at the moment, my concern is that you're dropping a very inexperienced player into a cauldron at the moment, you know, and that's not to take anything away from his skill set. The kid might, you know, he might be out of this world. But my concern is that if you don't nurture that correctly and you take a talent like that and you don't put it in the right environment, then just like so many of these other kids that people have these high hopes for, he'll get written off after 5 games because he loses confidence and can't trap a bag of cement.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think at this moment in time, I think it's a bit of a tough situation. I mean, we all thought that Kulu was going to be back sooner than he's going to be. That's just unfortunate. We didn't expect obviously Maddison to go down injured the way he's gone down. And I think, I mean, I said to you guys before we came on, I'm starting to look at Tottenham as a little bit like this sort of Goldilocks club where you name a player and the consensus is that they're either not good enough or they're too good for Tottenham. Well, there's got to be there has to be a band of players somewhere that fits our needs. And
would you argue that a lot of them players are probably gone, probably being snapped up, that was so late to the transfer party that there is only really youngsters with potential left that are going to, you know, because I do get what you're saying. Like for me, I think to a degree, we haven't really given the youngsters a massive chance to shine. Like we sort of, especially the guys in the front line, come in and replace Kane and Son and our output, which was never going to be the case. And I think it's unrealistic. And, you know, look, and I said this yesterday again on your show, as well as they done last year, as much heart and fight as they shown, he still wasn't good enough to put points on the board at the end of the day. And that's my big fear by doubling down and making the same mistake. I get what you're saying. Look, if someone could bring me a list of players where it sort of is that happy medium, I'll be all over it. But when I look around the transfer market, I'm just not sure what options are there for Tottenham to make now. I just concerned that we missed the boat, and I just don't want to take any more gambles on youngsters. I would rather go out and give our own the opportunity.
Right. No, I get it. I mean, at this point, I mean, let's face it. Let's not kid ourselves. If you really, really have intent and you really, really, really want to go and get the player, then you go and get the player. And I think maybe the problem with Spurs at times, or especially the way that the backs, you know, the staff in the background do the business, is they've got an idea of what they want to spend. They start at the lowest point that they think they can get away with not having the door slammed in their face. And then they seem to edge forward. Whereas other teams give the appearance, at least, of just going in there saying, how much is it? There you go, job done. So I think there is this perception that we drag our feet to the point where we can't get things done. I think if there was maybe a little bit of a change of mentality in the background, and I think I mean, over the course of the next 9 to 10 days, this is going to be make or break. Like, I would expect to see something. I mean, if we're led to believe, if we're going to eat the word, or if we're going to listen to what they're saying and we're going to believe it, then I need to be shown that there's something worth believing in. So I think they've got to, this next week, go and do that to a couple of players. Like this whole Savio thing, Savinho, if you really, really want to get it done, if you really think he's the answer, if they really won't do any less than 70 million, then you go to them with 70 million. You say, there you go, that's it, we're doing the deal or not. And if they and ah, you say, all right, done. Because you said 70 million, now you're and ah in, so you're not into it. So let's just call a spade, let's be done with it, and let's go elsewhere. The perception that we don't get our business done and we drag our feet isn't helped by the fact that there's no evidence to the contrary. Paqueta is a fantastic shout. I just don't know if Wet Spam are going to give us another one of their players without a fight, and I think we'd
have no one taking season tickets if they do.
Right,
a lot of them already gave up season tickets after them selling Kudus to us.
I know, and we'd have to go so far over the odds for him that I don't think an opportunity cost like that is worth it. And big up, just a quick shout, El Dante says Kulusevski posted photos on Insta of him in the gym doing fitness. Unfortunately, El Dante, most of it was upper body, and he was on one of the machines not using his legs, and they're saying maybe February. So I don't know, man. I always thought it was going to be a bad one. People were saying September, October, and I wasn't buying it, and now we're where we are. Steve, what's your thoughts?
The interesting thing is that I like Nico Paz, and I think he's an exceptional talent. And considering that he only made 4 appearances in La Liga to 30 starts in Serie A, a league that is that requires absolute discipline, I thought he actually had a pretty good first campaign. Now whether or not that translates to the Premier League, I have no idea. But that being said, at least with El Kudus, at least he had a taste with the Premier League last season with Leicester. And there were times where last season, in what I would consider one of the worst seasons in the Premier League, at least there was clips where he looked like he was one of their best players last year. So from that standpoint, at least I'd be willing to give a shot with a guy like El Kudus, because he's been around the block at least once in 27 starts in the Premier League. So for me, from a comfortability level, I'd be more willing to actually pay the freight for a guy like El Kudus, because again, he understands exactly how to navigate the Premier League. I guess the question is whether or not that actually actually gives Tottenham, top end talent. Is he the type of guy that's going to be able to jump into the starting 11 and be responsible enough to be able to carry the load at that position? Or is this going to be more of like a rotational type of player, right? See, that's the unknown with a guy, with either one of these guys. And so I guess the question is like, especially for a guy like El Kudus, is that worth the 30 to 35 million you're going to have to pay to get him over the line? Because you probably assume that even Leicester City is looking at this like this is an opportunity to try to get one over. Much like Manchester City is trying to do with Savio as well too, right? So I just think regardless of which direction you're going to go, I think every signing at this point is going to be a panic buy. And I don't like the idea of negotiating from the side of desperation. I'm almost in your camp, Dave, where it's like I would rather just wait until the January window. But that being said, if you don't fill that position, you would probably just assume that this start where we're going to need to bank as much points in the first couple months of the season, that's probably not going to happen unless that position actually kind of gets filled by someone.
No, 100%. I understand what you're saying, and I just obviously it's a position that needs to be filled, but if you do fill it with a Paz or an El Kudus and they don't contribute for the first up until January, then it's been a waste of money. You're just bringing in a body for the sake of bringing in a body, and that's my sort of huge concern. I think that's what we got into under Steve Hitchin. Doesn't matter, you need a position, just get a body in. And it's sort of like, look at the trouble we had offloading a lot of these guys. We had to run down a lot of their contracts and stuff, and I just thought I want to avoid that situation again, because it does hammer you going into the summer transfer market. It already puts you on the back foot, next summer. And I just don't want that. And I don't want Frank to have to deal with that, to be honest. Right. I'm at the point where I just want to bring in players and really help a manager really sort of kick on. But I mean, Sales Demon has come back. Says, "Okay, Dave, you say no more youngsters," which I do like. I do like. He says, "What about Ademola Lookman from Atlanta? He's a fantastic left winger with good output in the Serie A. Look, scored a hat trick, didn't he, in the Europa League final for Atlanta not so long ago?
Homegrown
as well. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. Look, if you asked me at the start of the window, I wouldn't have been on my list. You ask me now, I'd probably take him, to be honest with you.
Right.
I sort of do agree with Steve. I think we're at the point now where, 10 days to go, 11 days to go, I would assume a lot of our targets on, if we had a list, which I would hope we would, we're supposed to be a professional outfit, I would say a lot of them are gone now. A lot of them are being snapped up. So I do feel like we are at the point where we're sort of trying to pivot. And that is a dangerous sort of market to be in. That's where you could end up getting a lot of your signings wrong, or you could get a guy that's just willing to take the opportunity, take the bag, and not really sort of commit himself or be good enough to be here and stuff like that. So I do worry a little bit, but look, I'll give the club every opportunity to try and prove me wrong. If they can pull a rabbit out of the hat, I'll be the first one to sit here and praise them. But I just, look, like, Lookman, I think is gettable. I really like Paqueta from West Ham, but I agree with Drew. It's bad PR if they sell us their two best players in one window. I just don't see it happen, which I think takes him off the market. You could look at someone like Morgan Rogers, young, but has a lot of experience behind him. And, shown at Aston Villa that he's more than good enough to compete at this level. But do I think Tottenham are going to pay the 80 to 100 million I think Villa would probably be asking for? Not quite.
Dude, I tell you, even Dave, even if they did, there's a rumor that if anybody made a move on him, Chelsea would come in because he's on Chelsea's radar and Chelsea desperately want him. So if anyone comes in for him, they'll find a way of getting it done. And they're obviously pally with Villa because they've got, they're pally with Villa, aren't they, as well, because they have their Saudi friends. Oh, friends. Somebody mentioned Maisie's Adventure in the chat, and I was actually going to bring up this name because I think he's a pretty good shout. Asensio.
Love him. I'd love him.
Could do a year's loan. Yeah.
He'd be the perfect sign. He joined Aston Villa last year on loan. I think he would be open to a move to the Premier League. I think he would be a player we could get. Do I back Tottenham going in there and, trying to get the deal over the line? I'm not quite so sure. I just feel they would nickel and dime with someone like him. But he would be the perfect sort of, I would have no problems with that signing. Absolutely no problems at all. Yeah. It's not a bad name to throw out there, actually, Maisie Adventure. Probably one that I've mentioned before, but has actually probably slipped my mind this summer. So, that's a good name to bring forward. Guys, bring me more names today. That's what I need. I need optimism for the last 10 days of this window. I don't want to hear about youngsters or any of these footballing hipsters. You just guys out in the Belgian league. Not good enough for Tottenham Hotspur and what we need right now. Present me with some proper names, and that'd be absolutely brilliant. Spursy Bingo says, big up, lads. Does Nico Williams have a release clause? To be honest, I'm not quite so sure. And again, this ain't a deal that Tottenham will get done. And we go in for him trying to trigger something, half the world will be in there trying to trigger it. Trust me.
I think he just signed a new deal. So if he does have a release clause, it's huge.
Actually, sorry, all the players in Spain, I'm just not thinking, all the players in Spain have a release clause when they sign on La Liga clubs. It's actually a rule, within the contracts that they have to have this release clause. That's why when you actually go and look, a lot of the Spanish teams and their release clause, they're astronomical. Barcelona could sign a player and put a 200 million, 300 million release clause on it because they know not really anyone's going to pay it, and it sort of gives them the insurance. But every player in Spain, when they sign the contract, will have a release clause.
He absolutely does have a release clause, and it's worth anywhere between 90 to 100 million euros. So that's probably that's unrealistic to think that Tottenham's free for a dude like Nico Williams. I love it though. I would love it, but no.
We couldn't even meet Eze's release clause, and that was 60 odd million. So I would say we would really struggle to try and meet that one. Canyon Lee is another one I think would be a great pivot. I'm a big fan of his. Jack really likes him as well. I think he's a tidy player. Look decent against us when he came off the bench. J-Mac, not a bad name to present at all. Do you know what, guys? Weirdly enough, you're actually giving me a bit of optimism, the last 10 days of the window. Let's see what happens. But while Drewski's off getting his coffee, Steve, how important is it, early tests like this against Man City today away from home in building belief, especially for the new look squad under Thomas Frank, but also, getting belief behind Thomas Frank and the squad in general moving forward?
I think it's massive.
Especially with the negativity around the window.
Sure. And I think I think this is massive, right? It's almost the same concept with the with last year's trophy as well too. It's the ability to build belief in your ability to actually win big games in the Premier League, right? This is something that we have yet to see. In the Premier League, it was nice to see it in the preseason against Arsenal. It was nice to see it against PSG. But at the end of the day, these guys, these were essentially just friendlies, right? So now all of a sudden, you pivot to the Premier League, and now this is your first opportunity to see exactly how you stack up against a team that we probably assume is going to be finishing the top three, right? These guys, these guys are proven winners, right? So this is this is a massive opportunity, and when you consider that the negativity surrounding the transfer window, the protests, this would be an excellent opportunity to shut everybody up. And that's something that I think Thomas Frank has done pretty well so far, considering all things considered. So if they can go to the Etihad and steal a point or steal 3 points, as far as confidence levels, it would be absolutely massive for this team, considering we don't know whether or not this team can close out games in the Premier League yet, right? We saw it against a bad Manchester United team last year in Bilbao, but does that translate to the Premier League? Right? That's something that we just don't know. So I would probably assume if they go there and they're compact and they're able to strike on set pieces or on the counter and they're able to walk out with 3 points, I would probably assume that everybody walks away happy, to the point where how much validity are they going to be able to put in those protests, right? So I would love just a big middle finger to all the haters and the negativity out there.
No, 100%. I think you're absolutely spot on. I also think from a Thomas Frank point of view, and we'll get into it, in a while, but say if he does set up with the 5-3-2 and we get a result, I think also, it gets a lot of belief and buy-in from the players and trust in his game plan. And I think that's most important moving forward. I think,
they want that one back too. They want it back too after that loss against PSG on penalties, right? They want that one back 100%.
100%. Like, you go back to that everything game last year under Ange Postecoglou, where he tried to do something different, tried to play the 5 at the back. We were slapped up 3-0 by halftime against an Everton team that couldn't buy a goal at that point. Correct. I think you lose a lot of belief from the players in terms of what you're doing, game plans and stuff like that. And it was clear we haven't worked on it. Now, Thomas Frank, he likes to say, special tactics for a special operation, which I do like that quote, to be fair. He is charring me around, I would say. But I just think you grab something today. I think he would have brought massive buy-in and belief from the game plan against PSG. I think ultimately, yes, I know we lost, but I think a lot of the players probably would have been surprised on how well it actually worked in terms of nullifying them. I think last year, you look at them, they went 4-3-3 against everybody. Their games that were clearly they were just like, we're not good enough for what we do in here and stuff like that. So I think, setting up this way and getting results off the back of it, I think is massive for the players' belief, because I think then going into any game, against the smaller teams or against the so-called weaker teams, you play 4-3-3, you beat them. And if you can pick up results off the bigger teams by playing this way, the confidence that does as a squad, you're heading into these games almost expecting to take something from them rather than going in and hoping. And I think that's absolutely massive in terms of the negativity and hysteria around Tottenham, which I think is absolutely spot on. At the end of the day, we only react to what the club do or what the club don't do. But again, I think it just calms the noise down around Tottenham for another few days. And I think it's very, very important that we try and grab something from this game. But I'd also argue, I think we grab something from this game. I think we put a lot of the Premier League on notice. I think a lot of them will say, hang on, Tottenham are a much different proposition than what they were last year. I think we garner a little bit more respect moving forward. Drew, do you want to come in on that at all? Or I
think you've both tidied that one up nicely.
Fair. So Spurs.
Don't you think that?
Go on.
I was going to say, but don't you think that's already been established, considering the matches against Arsenal, PSG in the preseason, and maybe even against Burnley, and somewhat that that narrative about being a tougher team this time around than the last couple seasons. Don't you think that's already somewhat been established under Thomas Frank?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree. I think my only fear is I just don't think teams fear us in terms of our attacking play. I think they might look at us and go, look, going to be difficult to break down. But I don't think they fear us in terms of us going forward. And I think that is an area where I think we do need to sort of prove ourselves to a large degree because I don't think we get a lot of respect. You could see that last year, the way teams set up against us. It's okay. Give that player, give that guy the ball. What's he going to do? He's going to do absolutely nothing. Double mark this guy, take him out of the game. There's your game plan. We're going to win the game nice and easily. I think we do have to sort of still gather respect for ourselves in terms of going forward, showing how deadly we are and getting respect that way. But I do hear what you're saying in terms of being a tougher team to beat, tougher team to break down. I think we put a lot of teams on notice from the likes of our set pieces, and stuff like that. But I still argue, I still think we need to bring that open play to our game where we're ripping teams apart with some lovely fluid moves, But look, I do get what you're saying. I do think we have garnered a little bit of respect, but I just think preseason is preseason.
Yeah.
I think, you do it in a competitive game. I think especially against this Man City team, by the way, this Man City team has been written off. No one's speaking about them winning a Premier League title before their game against Wolves last week. It was all about a shootout between Arsenal and Liverpool. And I have no doubt Man City are sitting there hurting. They won 6 of the last 8 Premier Leagues. The disrespect that's been shown towards them. They're going to come out here on smoke today. We smacked them up and embarrassed them at their place 4-0 last year. They're going to want revenge today. And I'm not talking about just getting 3 points. They're going to want to rip us apart. And I think it'd be the perfect game for them to announce themselves and go, that was last season. Look at us this year. So I think, we are going to be walking into a complete different environment, a complete different atmosphere, a complete different team, in terms of their belief in what they're trying to do and stuff like that. So I think this is going to be a dangerous game. But I think, again, if we can get something, I think many people look at it and go, geez, fair fucks, and I think they'll look at us and just give us a little bit more respect in terms of how they plan to play against us and stuff like that. Big up Tartan Spur, very good comment, says, I'm still feeling humiliated after recent events, but we have to come together and get behind Thomas Frank and the team. Big up Dave, panel and chat, and forever, Coys. Big yourself up, my man. Absolutely spot on. Absolute great comment there. We also have Marcus Smith in the house. Big up IrishHotspur. Great to see you, buddy. Hopefully you're keeping well. Entertainment Beats is in the house. Good to see you, sir. We also have Ribsy says, come on, carry on, lads. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Ribsy. Member for 48 months. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. I know you're a very busy boy. You got a lot going on in your life at the minute, but if you ever did want to hop on one of these or if you have time available, let me know. Reach out to me, Ribsy. You got me number and stuff like that, and we'll arrange it with you. It's another one with a lot of good things to say, but, he's got a baby on the way, so he's gone hiding to a large degree. He's making sure everything's set up in that regard. So big up, Ribsy. Hopefully you're keeping well. And we also have Sweeney Todd. Morning, gents. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Good to see you. We also have Paddy Higgins in the house. Great to see you, Paddy. Hopefully you're keeping well. We have this from Hennessy. Good morning, Hennessy. Member for 33 months as well. How are you keeping, sir? How are you keeping? How's life? Are you moving on now into the big bad word from your graduation? Let me know. It says, howdy, gents. Hope the panel's all well. Big up, everyone. You know what? Hungry for a lot of the week, especially off the back of the Eze stuff and stuff like that. But weirdly, woke up today in a good mood. Yeah. Now, that's probably a bad omen. Usually when I go in with no hope, we usually pull something out of Man City. When I go in there with a bit of confidence is usually when I get humbled. So we'll wait and see how that pans out today. Joshua Overboy says, Richie has got this, lads. Romero's going to smash up Haaland too. Ooh. I mean, look, let's pivot. I mean, I was going to have the Richie conversation probably last, but look, let's get straight into it. We'll bring it up off the back of your super chat. Really appreciate the support, my man. But guys, just days after Richarlison's brace, reports emerged that Spurs offered him as part of the Eze deal. Now, I know other reports have come out maybe different and sort of said differently after the fact that Eze has turned us down. But in general, the fact that his name is being thrown in there, I mean, from a psychological standpoint, how do you think Richarlison processes this? I mean, does it fuel his fire to prove people wrong or risk undermining his confidence ahead of what could be a make-or-break season for him? And it's also worth noting that Thomas Frank, in the embargoed section of the press conference, sort of said that as soon as he arrived, Richarlison was at his door saying, I want to stay. So it does seem like he's hungry and he's committed to the football club. I mean, Drew, we'll go to you. I mean, what sort of Richarlison do you think we're going to see off the back of this? Because we can sit here and say he shouldn't be affected, but he is a very temperamental, emotional sort of character.
Yeah. I mean, we did have the situation with Conte, didn't we? And I know he was sort of in and out of the team, and I know there was injuries, and then there was mental health issues and stuff like that. And he had some stuff going on in Brazil, I think, with his family. So you never truly know what's going on in the background. And at the end of the day, I know it's a cliche, but these are all just human beings that have emotions. They just happen to be for 90 minutes on a green field, and we, put them on pedestals at times. So, I mean, the thing with Richie for me, and I know we talked about it last night on the show and we had a little bit of a laugh about it. And I said, Comet Richie, somebody asked, when the next time we're going to expect a performance like that. And I said, based on Comet Richie and the 2-goal brace, it's going to be what? It was the World Cup, Everton. So, 2028 is the next time it's due to come around in the Northern Hemisphere. Look, he's always been able to put it about. He's always been one that is happy to sort of run around and get stuck in. He was always very busy at Watford. He was always very busy at Everton. And it's only really what would it have been? I'm not sure if it was the World Cup or the other cup. But, I mean, essentially, he was run ragged, picked up an injury, and has had a real hard time getting back into fitness. But you notice the one adjective I used there was busy, not clinical, not a finisher, not, it's so... This is my problem with Richie. He'll do a job for you out on the wing. He'll close people down like we saw last year in Europe. He was fantastic at that. That being said, he does have the ability to do what he did on Saturday. It's not the first time that he's done it, but it's too few and far between. So if he can stay fit, if he can keep some sort of something resembling fit, consistent, given the situation we're in, I'm not sure I want to split the budget and try and fill 2 holes when we can go all out on one, fix one position, and between him and Solanke, I would hope they would be able to get through a season. I think with the right service, here's the thing, last year as well, whenever he was fit, he's just not had the service. He's not had anything that even looked like a cross, really, if we're honest. Johnson can't cross, although last week he came in on his right foot and put a ball into the box, which I was amazed at. I think it ended up going straight to the keeper, but it was just something I'd never seen before. It's almost like seeing an exotic bird on a tree, and you're just like, what is that? I've never seen anything like it. So maybe there's hope. But I think if you've got a system that has wingers that get to bylines and put balls in the box in decent positions, I think potentially Richie could get you 15 goals. And for a backup striker or for a starting striker that will play 60 minutes and then have another striker come in behind him and fill minutes, I mean, it's not bad. If they can get 30 between them, that's a start.
No, fair. I mean, look, 30 between them, I suppose you take them off the back of their last couple of seasons, you know what I mean? But big up Joshua, really appreciate support. But, let's bring up what Stats has to say here. It says, heard some stats on TalkSport. Richie apparently has the most goals per minute played in the Premier League over the last 2 seasons. He has quality when he is fit, but he's almost never fit. How much of that stat is boosted by the fact that he doesn't play? If you know what I mean, right?
That's the thing. It could up there. Yeah, you could be really like it's a really interesting stat, but it could be so skewed because the ratio, like if he wasn't injured, that ratio of goals to minutes was never going to big up, Sean. It's 5:30. I've been up since 3:30. Let's go. It's actually 4:30. I don't even know what bloody time it is. Let's go.
Do you know what? You're so committed to this football club, actually. I meant to say to you, like, I threw on Shawnee's the other day and you're on, and I'm sitting there like, does this guy not have to go to work after? Like, how early is it for him? You absolutely are committed to this club, lad.
Well, I'm committed to you lot. I don't know about this bloody club, but yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably true. With Richie, do you know what? I don't know. I don't know. We do at the very least have one person on the wing. See, this is what concerns me because if Kudus goes down, we are absolutely fucking buggered. Yeah. But the goals last week just go to show that you've got somebody that can actually put in a decent ball. They were 2 completely different balls as well. You know, he beats his man in two completely different ways. One was a low, sort of a lowish cross with a bounce on the end. The other one was just pinpoint in an area. He took his time. It's almost like the game slowed down for him. You could see he sort of looked up, just took a breath, and was just like ping, like a little pitching wedge straight over. It was beautiful. So if you can give him that sort of service and he can keep on it, you know what? It's not. Is it the greatest strike force in the world? Absolutely not. Is it ever going to be anything resembling Sonny and Kane? Absolutely not. But if it gets the ball in the back of the net, I'll take it for 12 months, just so that we can, you know, just get something resembling a team.
Yeah. Look, one thing I will say is that when Richie is available, he does score goals, but it's just keeping him available. It's almost like at Tottenham Hotspur, anytime he builds a little bit of momentum, something, whether it's something going on in his life or an injury or something derails his sort of progress. And I think for me, I would have been okay to maybe cash in on him this summer, to be quite honest. But I think it looks like he's going to be around here for the season. But I genuinely would say this is his last chance to prove his value. This is his last season to prove his worth. I would agree with Drew. I think you look at both goals last season or last week. You can't underestimate them. That first goal, that low-driven volley into bottom corner, I've seen so many players shank them. That you know, that's a guy in confidence. The overhead, you don't try that unless you have a bit of confidence within yourself, a bit of self-belief. And I think we are seeing a guy that is believing himself right now. How long it's going to continue, I think that's everyone's biggest question. You know, we've seen these false starts from Richarlison before, so let's wait and see. Big up, Shawnee. You on your way to the game today? Let me know. Are you traveling down with Johnny, you know, onto the game? Do let me know, Shawnee. I mean, Steve, we'll come to you. I have another question for you, and then I do want to come back to this from Faz Radford. I think it's a good question about the partnership, maybe. Could we develop one there between Kudus and Richarlison? But Thomas Frank said in his pre-match press conference, Steve, that Richarlison is his starting number 9 right now, making Solanke, or meaning that Solanke has a real task sort of ahead of him, a bit of a battle that maybe I don't think he was expecting. From your perspective, what specific areas does Solanke need to improve on or adapt in order to sort of push Richarlison out of that starting striker role?
That's a very great question. Right now, it's taking advantage of the space that's given in the box. I think, you know, the interesting thing about it is I don't think anybody has a problem with Solanke's work rate at the moment. I think we saw that last year, his ability to push up the pitch. The problem is when he gets in the box, he almost finds himself as a stationary target 9. Whereas Richarlison is actually trying to take advantage of that space and trying to move around, putting himself in a position where he can accept crosses, where he can put himself in a good position. You know, last week was a very good example of that. Where, you know, once Richie gets in the box, he wasn't stationary. He was trying to move. He was trying to peel off shoulders and try to put himself in a position to actually receive, those two crosses from, Kudus, and he was able to, put a good foot on the ball. That's when, that's been the issue with Solanke. It's not only is he stationary, but, he never seems to put himself in a position where he can receive crosses or receive any type of service. And when he does, he usually pushes it wide, or he pushes it over the crossbar. He never seems to be in the right position to take advantage of quality balls in the box. And I think that's kind of the big difference. But also with right now with Richie, it's also confidence. And I think that's something that he's built himself up to in this point, considering that, when you guys were just talking about, that Eze deal, that was absolute straight disrespect from the Spurs front office, Johan Lang and Daniel Levy, saying, listen, Eze right now is a better player for us than you are, considering the fact that right now we're just having trouble scoring goals. And all of a sudden the guy comes out and scores a brace in his, in the debut campaign against Burnley. And all of a sudden it's just not good enough. And yet, when you look at the adversity the guy just went through, injury after injury to try to get himself back in the pitch, trying to get himself back into the picture. And all of a sudden he shows up. It just goes to show you exactly the type of confidence that guy is kind of walking around right now. But that being said, when you just look at the way that he plays versus how Dominic Solanke plays, it's night and day. Richie is actually doing the little things that are absolutely needed in the box in order to put the ball in the back of the net, which is something that Solanke still, unfortunately, just hasn't been able to produce.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you. I think, look, when it comes to Richarlison and Solanke, I think Richarlison is more alert, more sharper in terms of in the area. I think he's more hungry to get after the ball. I think, Richarlison for me excels between the posts, in the box, get the service in, and he will sniff out an opportunity. And he sniffs it out because of how proactive he is. He's on the move. He's looking to get on the end of it. He doesn't care if there's a boot flying in. He's trying to jump in with his head or whatever to try and get on the end of it. I think when I look at Dominic Solanke, if you go back and look at a lot of his movement in the box, it's very, very reactionary to the situation unfolding in front of him, rather than just having a sort of smarts or the nous. I look at Solanke, and I just think a lot of it is mistimed, a little bit late to a certain degree. Now, don't get me wrong, the fact you don't get great service or haven't got great service, that can sort of demotivate you or make you second guess, what you already know. And I do think there is an element with that with Solanke. I'd argue I think Richarlison's a better finisher than Solanke, to be quite honest with you. I think when I look at Solanke, I think Solanke's better outside the box, better at hold-up play, linking up with others. I think he's better at that. But in the box, I'm just not sure he's better than Richarlison. That's just my opinion of what I've seen. I'd also argue, with Solanke, I sort of look at him. Is he going to kick on at Tottenham Hotspur? I don't look at a guy that looks highly motivated, that is full of confidence. I think we bought a guy that was full of confidence, and I think we've drained it out of him, to be quite frank. And I think there's a long road back for Dominic Solanke. I don't think he's just going to get fit, come back in and start banging in the goals. I mean, prime example, last week, great ball into him. He done absolutely everything right, held it up, created half a yard. But that's the difference between him and other strikers we've had at Tottenham Hotspur. Other strikers at Tottenham Hotspur in years gone by, to get that half a yard, that's in the back of the net, the team's punished. Dom Solanke drags it wide, and I just look at it, and I think I'm not surprised Richarlison's the starting number 9 right now. I know Solanke's had a bit of an injury and to come back from it, but I've always felt like, and I've always said this to Jack, I just think Richarlison is better at sniffing out chances than Dominic Solanke. That's just my opinion. I mean,
when you look at the size, when you look at his height and you look at his size, you would think that he would be able to, you would think that he would be able, to handle that, to handle those crosses, especially, playing off the shoulder of a central defender. But that dude just ends up camping between two center backs, and you're absolutely right. He's absolutely reactionary when the ball comes in, and there's absolutely zero movement of him. And then the interesting thing, when the ball does come in and it's a good cross, he always, you're absolutely right. He always seems to be a step late. Where when you look at Richarlison, that dude's always moving in the box. Dude's always trying to put himself in a better position, for those, crosses. I think you put it absolutely brilliantly. It's being proactive instead of reactive, 100%.
Yeah, look, that's just my opinion. I mean, look, it'd be interesting to see what Drew has to say about it as well. I mean, Michael Warrington says, I disagree, Dave. I think Dom is more clinical and a technical striker. Richie is a street player that plays on emotion and instinct. Look, I don't discount that he plays on emotion and instinct. It's clear every time he enters the pitch, there's that built-up emotion, anger, and stuff like that. And look, there is cases to make that he is a bit of a street player. I get what you mean. I just think he's better at hunting out the chances and sniffing out the chances than Dominic Solanke. And I think, you can sit here and say Dominic Solanke doesn't get a load of service, but when there are balls put in the box, is he ever really anywhere near them or on the back of them? You look at Richarlison, he seems to be there. He seems to get on the end of them. I mean, look, Drew, we'll bring you in. I mean, Michael disagrees with what me and Steve are saying here. Are you on that side? Do you think maybe we are being a bit harsh to Dominic Solanke?
Do you know what? Maybe a little bit, when you consider that his last season at Bournemouth, he was really good. Yeah. And now you've taken him from being that player where essentially he was kind of, in between the posts.
It was the first season he hit them numbers though, right?
It was the first season. But that's not the point I was going to make. The point I was going to make is you've taken him out of a system that was actually getting the best out of him, and then you've put him in a system. And this isn't. I'm really careful not to try and. No, look,
I think it's a fair
argument. I just don't want to throw too much dirt on. I don't want to throw too much dirt on Angie's direction. But I really think the more I think about it and the more I look at how we've played over the last couple of years, he had a very, very, very specific way of playing. some people might say, or not playing. But he asked his number 9 to do things that your ordinary or orthodox or typical number 9 doesn't really want to do. They sacrifice so much running around and so much pressing that I almost think that there was some times last year where he was so heavy-legged from doing all of that work, then when the chance did come, it was almost like he was trying to kick a bag of sugar. It was just so, so I think it's a little unfair just because we've got such a small window of what Solanke looks like in a Frank team, because the Solanke we've seen hasn't even been fit. So I think, I'd like to hope that we've got the best scenario in that you've got a fit and firing Richie, but you've also got a Solanke who's now going to be told to play his game a little more. He's going to get his opportunity. I think he's going to be chomping at the bit. And I don't know, I'd like to think that Richie being the way he is at the moment is going to make Solanke go, all right, no worries. I'm just going to bide my time. And I would like to hope that when he does get his opportunity and he is fully fit, I think you're going to see an entirely different Solanke to the one you saw last year. Because I think the one you saw last year or the last 18 months have just been at 6s and 7s.
Yeah, but he's a linear attacker though, right? So like when I go back and watch some of his goals at Bournemouth, right? He was at his best when he was played centrally onto the ball, where he's able to get on it and run 1v1 situations where he was able to, have good placement on the net, right? He was never really one of those guys that can receive crosses in the buildup, right? Don't get me wrong, he still scored in those situations as well too, but he was a far better player when he's actually played onto the ball centrally. And last season, some of his best moments came in the counterattack when Madison and Kulusevski were pinging balls forward, and that allowed Solanke to beat his man 1v1 up the pitch in those type of situations. So I think there's a certain way that you have to play, and that was one of the bigger reasons why I actually like the Thomas Frank hire, is because I actually thought it was going to benefit James Maddison and specifically Dominic Solanke, just for those reasons as well.
Look, I think Drew makes a fair point, in terms of was Ange setting up to get the best out of the striker. Look, don't get me wrong. As a front man running the nuts off yourself, sometimes, there is a breakaway and you're just too tired to get there. Or you need to, to save a bit of gas in the tank or whatever. That can be the case. But I'd also make the argument, it's not new seeing these strikers run around, press hard. I remember watching Tevez, Rooney, them guys had it in them running around, pressing the ball, but still scored spectacular goals, still had plenty of energy in the tank to find spaces in the box and stuff like that. But I do take your point. Look, I'm not writing Solanke off. I guess might be concerned when we signed Dominic Solanke is it's one thing finishing at Bournemouth when you're confident and there's not really a lot of pressure. There's difference when there's massive pressure at Tottenham Hotspur, and scoring a goal or missing it can be the difference between 3 points. And at a club like Tottenham Hotspur, where you're supposed to be fighting for stuff, it's a different type of pressure altogether. I just was never sure Solanke was the right guy to sort of carry that on his shoulders. But like I said, I take the point. Lack of service, it's very difficult for a striker. There does come a point where the ball's out wide. You're making one run, it doesn't come, or you make that run, and next thing the ball's gone over your head and stuff like that. It can make you look silly. It can make you look bad. I fully take that on board, and I think it's a fair argument to make back. And look, I'm going to give Dom Solanke time, but we'll come back to this, Joshua. But I would argue, Steve, Halley Hotspur says, hold on, Richie is doing this in this team, pressing, holding the ball up, getting into better positions in the box than what Dom did. And again, I think it's a fair point, but I do think you have to take on what Drew is saying. I do think it's a fair point, that with Richarlison, I'd argue I think Richarlison needs to do that in his game to get himself going personally. I think if he didn't have that sort of emotion, that aggression, that anger, I don't think you see anywhere near the same Richarlison. Whereas with Dominic Solanke, I'm not sure he needs that to sort of get going. I think he would rather just get on the end of things rather than running around pressing his nuts off and stuff like that. I think it's a fair argument, fair discussion. But good counters, guys. Keep getting your comments in the chat and we'll keep bringing them up. And if you disagree with what we're saying here, as you can see, I have no problem bringing up the counter argument. Joshua,
well, we were said. Go on. Sorry, well, just really quickly, we were really the front line was really disjointed, or has been for the last 2 seasons. There was a couple of times, and one goal specifically stands out, and I remember it. It was a Johnson, I think it was against Manchester City. Johnson played a ball forward that was supposed to be Solanke's. And if he'd played it correctly, the ball was going straight into Solanke's path, and it literally would have just been a couple of paces more, and he would have rolled onto it, and he just would have leathered it with his right foot. But Johnson puts it so far past him that Solanke's got to run 10 yards out of position to then put a ball back into the box, which Porro actually then scores from. And it ended up being a goal. But the point is, there was so many times last year where it was a ball that was 5 or 10 yards too far this way or that way. So someone's got to stretch just that little bit more. And then they're not in the position they're supposed to be in, because they were supposed to receive the ball 10 yards back. So then you've got somebody else coming out of position to make up for the fact that somebody else has gone out of position. And it all just seemed to be this, I don't want to say catalogue of errors, but there's a domino effect when that sort of thing happens. And I hope that with Thomas Frank and, you know, his coaching and his ability, you're going to see less of that. It should be a bit more precision.
Well, I would also argue
that would help.
I'd also argue to that point. I think, you know, going a bit more direct the way we seem to be under Thomas Frank, you know, especially from throwing set pieces and stuff. I think there is a value of having Solanke and Richarlison there for them, you know, getting in on the end of them and stuff. They're big guys, you know. Richarlison's scrappy. Solanke is capable of holding his own in them sort of situations. I wonder, will that help him out a bit more? And again, I think you raise a fair point. There's a lot of times last year I felt sorry for Solanke when he did make the right run. And it wasn't just Johnson, by the way. There's plenty of other players guilty of this. Madison was guilty of it, and others. Just that final ball just wasn't right. It was always underhit, overhit, too far to the left, too far to the right, you know, making them break their stride and stuff. I think it's a fair point. I can't really disagree with it. Joshua says Richie is like a pigeon picking up scraps in the box, which I fully agree with, by the way. I mean, I think every single one of us would love to do his celebration today. He says, is that an Ericsson 2025 kit on your wall, Drew?
No, it's the 17-18 kit. I had to look it up because it was so long ago.
It's a nice one, that. But we will be donning the all-black kit today up against Man City. We're going incognito mode. So let's see how that works out in our favour. But big up Joshua and Wayne Bonner, member for 47 months. Fucking hell, you know, big up, my man. Says, has Vic shown any improvement under Frank? I do want to come back to this. I just want to finish off the Richie segment quickly. Well, you know, not quickly, but just want to finish it off. And then I am going to come back to this because I do have something to say about Vicario, actually. But Faz Radfar, to finish off the Richarlison section, I mean, he says, can you sense a partnership being built between Richie and Kudus? And look, this comes off, obviously, the 2 goals last week. I think when they were leaving the pitch, you could sort of see Kudus and Richarlison sort of talking. And it looked like to me there had been conversations where Kudus has been saying to Richarlison, when I get the ball here, make a movement, put yourself here. And I think you could sort of see that in maybe the reflection and the animations that were going on at the end of the game when they were speaking to each other and stuff. And you've seen people online starting to call it Kudus and stuff like that. I mean, look, Drew, would start with you on this one and pivot back to Stevie. I mean, do you see a partnership developing here, or are we getting carried away just off the back of, you know, 2 assists against a Burnley team who was only newly promoted? Because, like you said, strikers have been starved, and you know, Kudus is the guy to supply them. So do you see it working?
Yeah,
out?
I mean, I would like to think, I would hope that in a well-coached team, there should always be, especially if you're playing with wingers and a 9, which most of the time, I can't really, you know, unless it's like a 5-3-2 and it's wing backs. But even then, you still got a wide player. But I would expect that in a well-drilled team, that you would have relationships between your left, right winger and your number 9. Like, it just seems like that's like fish and chips to me. Do you know what I mean? They just go together. You should always have, and I know we've kind of gotten away from it. Like, modern day football's gotten away from it. You want to invert your wingers. Everyone wants to come in on their stronger foot and put a worldie in the postage stamp. Do you know what I mean? It's just that. But for me, Aaron Lennon used to be the one for me. Aaron Lennon and Gareth Bale, they used to go down the wings and pop in balls, man. And that's what I want from my wingers. So, you know,
is that old school of us though, Drew? As the game changed, is there a value of getting back to doing that? I mean, you look at Nottingham Forest, that's what they've done last year, right? Down the wing, put it in the box, get the big man onto it.
I think if you've got somebody in there like a number 9 that's got something about them, then I think it should certainly be something that you've got in your arsenal. Fucking said it. Yeah, but not in the context that, you know, it wasn't that.
Let's ring Adrian, tell him we've got him.
I just think, yeah, if you can put that in your playbook and you can use it to your advantage. And here's the thing, right? I think the reason that they've gone away from it, the reason it's been gone away from is because there aren't really many that number 9s that get themselves about in the box much anymore.
You are seeing the world of football change back to that, though. You look at City with Haaland, you know, Chelsea or Arsenal have brought in Gyökeres. Chelsea have brought in Liam Delap. You look at Arsenal, who is it? Nottingham Forest, they've got Chris Wood. You know what I mean? I do see a lot of teams starting to pivot back to get that big guy, that big sort of striker. I think the whole world got fooled. I think when Man City came calling for Harry Kane, they couldn't get him. So they went with this sort of small fluid front three, and people are like, look, Pep's changing the game. Not changing the game. Fair play to him. He found a way with going without a striker and still winning games. But the minute they got the chance, they went and bought Erling Haaland, which shows a lot of teams are starting to recognize, you know, the value in having that big guy up front. I do think the world of football is starting to go back to that to a certain degree. You look at, especially Newcastle, Isaac, you know, you look at a lot of the top 8 teams in the Premier League, they've all got that guy.
Do you know, I don't know if you happened to watch the Man City Wolves game last week. Or at least I guess you wouldn't have had the commentary that we get over here anyway. But the commentary was Lee Dixon and Graham Lasso and Ian Drury, maybe. Lee Dixon and Graham Lasso were carving pieces out of Haaland, saying that the guy does. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that he scores the goals that he does absolutely nothing. He doesn't drop deep. He doesn't spread play. He basically is a luxury player, and everybody has to basically work to his strengths.
I think that's poor commentary, though. I think he's been asked to do that in the Man City team. I think you go back and look at Salzburg, Dortmund. That guy was more than able to pick up the ball, deep run at people, put the ball in the back of the net. Yeah. I think it is more down to specific instructions in this system. And I think
Pep's ruining football.
I think that's why some of them older guys. I think that's why some of them got older guys on commentary need to pave way for new kids on the block like me, because I think that's just poor commentary on their behalf, and I don't think they're doing the football world any service with comments like that.
No, fair play.
Yeah, I mean, look how high Pep has has Haaland playing, right? You're absolutely. I mean, in a sense, when you look at it, right, he's just not asked to do those little things. It's body up central defenders and, you know, put the ball in the back of the net. There's no need for him to drop deep making touches in that system. They have other ball carriers that that do the dirty work. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Steve, though, let's get your thought here on the Kudus partnership. I mean, is this one you see develop him in, or are we just getting hyped up off the back of, you know?
I think don't get me wrong. As great as it was to see those 2 goals, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting, right? So when you look at Burnley's back four compared to Manchester City's back four, I probably would assume that Kudus is not necessarily going to have that type of space where he's going to be able to create. Burn a man to his right and put a ball in the box. I would probably assume Manchester City's probably going to overload that right side to do whatever they can to make sure Kudus is not going to be able to have the time and space 100%. To do that. Right. So, I mean, from that standpoint, right, for me, it's all on Kudus and not necessarily Richarlison. I think Richarlison's probably going to do what he can to try to get on the end of any ball that comes into him. But that being said, right, I guess the answer might be maybe, depending on the opponent. But I mean, if this is going to be something where, Spurs are going to have to, rely on for the entire season, I would probably think it would be foolish to expect, that to be a consistent outlet for scoring. I just don't see it. But that being said, in a vacuum, could that work? 100%. But it's all going to be contingent on what's going to happen on the other side of the pitch. Is there going to be production where it's going to make defenses look at it and say, okay, well, we can't just overload one side. This person can kill you from the left as well too. And right now, that is absolutely not the case. So I would probably assume that until that gets handled, whether it's an incoming 10 or an incoming left wing where it's going to make defenses think twice, I would probably say the answer is going to be no against some of the better defenses in this league.
I think I think you make a great point there. Look, it's nowhere near Kane and Son level. You could have tried to double up on either of them. They still would have ripped you apart. They were just good enough too. I think with Kudus, I think you're spot on. I think people will realize that Kudus is the main sort of guy in this partnership. And if we don't have that number 10 and we don't have that like potent left winger that's created, it will become very easy to stop. It will become very easy to stop. They'll start overloading that side of the pitch, and then you're not leaving a lot of space for Kudus to work his magic. You'll end up losing a lot of the ball because they have so many players around them trying to take it off him. It will dry up eventually, and that's where I do think it is important that we do have that number 10 supplying chances and someone off the left-hand side supplying chances, because then, like you say, all of a sudden it's like, well, what area do we stop? You know, it's a bit more difficult. But right now, I'll take it. I mean, it's been so long since I've seen any sort of partnership between any front players. I will take even what they've supplied right now. Going forward, it'll be interesting. Let's wait and see.
And it also makes, Pedro Porro and Jed Spence that much more important in this attack as well, too, to take pressure off of Kudus, especially in that buildup as we're pushing up the pitch, right? The ability to have somebody else being balls into the box, whether it's wing backs or whether it's the two center backs as well, too, trying to get other guys, played onto the ball. Because, I mean, if the way things are going to continue to play out, Kudus is going to be taken off the ball. I would probably assume automatically they're going to shut down that right side of the right side wing.
And I would argue as well, I think Solanke and Richarlison should be handing half of their wages over to Kudus, to be honest with you, just because the amount of supply is going to give them. But look, I'm all here for Kudus. Let's see how long it lasts. Kudus. And I would say, we have known Man City Stadium as the deck he had in years gone by. It's going to be the Kudus hat after today. I can't wait for this guy to rip it up. And by the way, anyone that's a big fan of Bruce Springsteen and likes his song Dancing in the Dark, well, they've now converted it to a Kudus song, and it's absolutely fire. So I will be all over that today if the man delivers. Now back to Wayne Bonner. Let's pivot back, and he's talking about Vicario. Has he shown any improvement? I'm going to take out under Frank. I'm going to ask, has he shown any improvement since we first signed him? Look, I'm not going to lie. Up until the ankle injury, I was aware of his deficiencies in terms of set pieces and stuff, but ultimately, big fan of his. Since coming back from the ankle injury, I don't think we've seen the same goalkeeper in general. I think we've seen a guy that maybe is lacking confidence. I think we're seeing a guy that maybe is letting in more goals or easier goals and not making saves that we're used to seeing. And look, if Jack is listening, he's probably rolling in his bed right now or rolling out of it. He's probably not happy with this conversation. He's a big fan of Vicario. But one thing that made me really nervous last week was a shot that he had to face from outside the box. He flapped it, and then he's standing there doing all of this. I mean, that's something I used to go ballistic at Eric Dyer for. It's like, if you can't deal with the problem, don't start fucking blaming other people. Don't you fucking dare, because all you do is pass on the blame, take no responsibility, and ultimately just piss people off around you. If I'm one of them players, I'm turning around to Vicario. Stop this. You're not at a fucking dance. You're not at a rave. You're in a football match. Fucking focus, you should have caught that. So for me, I am becoming concerned about the levels of display that Vicario's shown, with Thomas Frank's system. Exactly. Little box, big box. That's what he may as well have been doing. But, with Thomas Frank's system, a lot of it is designed to force the opposition to take pot shots from outside the box. Last year at Brentford, Flecken faced the most shots outside of the box, pulled off a lot of saves. This season, prime example, the game against Burnley, shot outside the box, flapping around like he's at a rave. Conceded, a couple of shots outside the box in pre-season. I'd argue some that maybe he should have saved. I'm becoming a little bit concerned, but where I'm also concerned, Wayno, Kinski ain't the answer right now either. It's not sort of like we need Vicario to perform. But, I mean, guys, me and Wayno being harsh here, we'll start with you on this, Stevie, and then head back to Drewski.
The interesting thing is I think I'm in the minority because I actually think, Vicario, especially when he came back last season from the injury, it looked like he was playing with a little bit more confidence. And I think that was reflective in the Europa League, run to that final, especially in that final. I think he looked pretty goddamn good. But that being said, your point is well taken, especially against Bayern Munich in the preseason. maybe even against Newcastle a little bit as well too. There were some shots from outside the box, angles that you would probably assume that he would probably have eyes on and be able to make routine saves, and yet the ball ends up in the back of the net. So from that standpoint, that is a little alarming. But that being said, you would think that the way this defense is set up and the fact that they're not going to allow cheap balls in the box, and when you look at balls being shot in from well outside the 18, you would think that would be Vic's strong suit.
It's usually bread and butter for a keeper, right?
Absolutely. And it looks like he's a little uncomfortable trying to make those saves, and that and for me that is a little concerning. But that being said, when you look at the discrepancy between number 1 and number 2, Vic is clear cut the number 1. And the interesting thing about it is that I think there's a lot of confidence in this team, in Vicario, that he can improve, that he can put himself in a position where he can raise his game, especially in these type of games against teams of the ilk of a Man City, that he will come good. But that being said, it's right there, the Spurs crow right there, right, and that was going to be my word as well too. It just seems that over the course of the last 4 or 5 games, there has been a lot of erratic behavior from Vicario. To me, that is a little, that gives me a little pause. But that being said, it's like, would you rather trust Vicario in a situation to come good against a team like Man City, or a guy like Kinski, who obviously still has a lot of room to develop, right? So I think as far as I'm concerned, I don't think you're gonna. I think there's going to be a massive drop off if you go for the number 2 at this stage. So I think you have no choice but to play Vicario.
Yeah, absolutely fair. I mean, Drew, anything else you want to add on that? We being harsh, maybe? Do you sort of agree with the talking point? Where are you at with it?
I got no problem with Vic, really. I mean, I agree with. I was gonna make this point, that somebody did it for me in the chat. I think last week with the big box, little box, I think he was trying to infer that the ball was spinning. It took a deflection. He couldn't quite work it out. I think he was trying. Yeah, he was like, look, spinning, like it's weird. But it doesn't instill you with the greatest confidence. Yeah. I was, when he came in, I wasn't gonna, it kind of is what it is. I always wanted Marmadashvili, but he went to Liverpool. Yeah. I also think that there's a couple of other players out there. I mean, I still don't understand how Diogo Costa is still at Porto, because I don't know if he's ever going to. This is one of those Goldilocks players. Oh, he's too good for us. Do you know what I mean? So he was never going to come. But like Mike Mannion, something like that, I'd have done a swap deal for Mannion and sent Vic back to Italy. Like I'm not going to die on a Vic. Yeah, I'm not going to die on a Vic Hill. But I also, coming back from a foot injury, he's got to get a bit of a confidence back. He was also last year, and I've said it many a time, I think he played with about 6 different back lines. I just, I think we got to give him another season at least now. Of course. But it's unfortunate, like it's Tottenham, right? We always find ourselves in a position where you look at 2 players in the team and you go, oh, Kinski and Vic. If we could just mold them together and make one player, they'd be great. But do you know what I mean? It just is what it is.
I think that's our problem across lots of positions. If you mold the 2 of them together, you've got the complete player, right?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, but but also look at the 2 guys that are playing in front of them, right? As Van de Ven and Romero continue to develop as a center back pair, you would probably assume that Vic is going to actually have clear sights to the ball, right? Those 2 have actually cleared out the box, right? And so you would probably assume that's only going to get better, right? And Vicario is probably going to have better approaches to saves. You
would hope that back 4, that like we've all said as a nucleus, or as the biggest strength, like if that back 4 are playing well, be it Udogie or Spence, VDV, Romero, Porro. I mean, if you can get those guys all on the same page and absolutely, being the defense that we all think that they can be, then Vicario's days at the office should be pretty easy.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good point. Paulini in there, the 2 Paulini screening 2 centre backs. Yeah. will it tighten them up? I think it'll tighten us up. But I think one thing I've seen from Vicario time and time again, one-on-one, I actually back the keeper to make the save rather than the player scoring. Genuinely have that much confidence in the one-on-one. This season, he's not going to be as exposed like that. He is going to have to, he's going to face a lot more shots outside the box and stuff. And I'd argue, if you go back and look at his time at Tottenham facing shots outside the box, maybe a bit similar to Hugo Lloris. I don't think he's the best. I think maybe he switches off a little. I do think that is it's going to be a different test, and it'll be interesting to see whether Vicario can rise to it or not. But look, I don't want to go too far, and I'm not going to say I do think he's a decent goalkeeper, but I think it's a situation maybe to keep an eye on over the next couple of months. I think today will be a huge test. I mean, if Vicario has a couple of blunders, let's say a few outside the box, I mean, we've got problems, and I think it's a conversation or an area that might have to be accelerated. But let's wait and see how he handles today. BPM 1960. First of all, I absolutely love the drink BPM, if anyone knows what that is. Absolutely love it. It says, the Kane and Son partnership was unique, and we were privileged to see it. Sadly, it's gone, and I think we're going to see a different sort of football now. No, look, 100% we're going to see a different sort of football, but I would say there's no reason why we can't develop another partnership. I mean, we had King and Berbatov. People said, you never see that again. We delivered Kane and Son. You know, we had Bale and Lennon out either side and stuff like that. We are capable of putting partnerships together. I'll just argue, I don't think we've got the right blend or the right mix across the front line in terms of technical ability, speed of thought, you know, football and brain in general, to really create that sort of partnership with what we've got right now. I do think you're going to have to bring in other players to sort of supplement Kudus. I think you build the front line around Kudus, and I think you can get back to that point again. Look, are we going to get someone as prolific as Kane and Son? Of course not. Statistically and factually, the most prolific partnership the Premier League has ever seen. It's going to be hard to recreate that. But my whole point was, years ago, I could see they were getting older. It was always going to come to an end. But Tottenham should have got ahead of this situation a lot quicker than what they did. Now, all of a sudden, we're left with no Kane, no Son. And you've got three players fighting out for the left wing, and no one knows who to pick, and no one knows who's better than the other. It's a huge issue, a huge issue. But to your point, fully understand it. But we do need to develop some sort of partnership, you know, within that frontline BPM. But very, very fair point, my man. I mean, Steve, it looks like you have something you want to say on this. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, I was just going to say that I just mentioned Odegaard's name on that left-hand side when you said we have no idea who that's going to be. As I would probably just assume of the three that can play it, he's probably the better of the three. So yeah,
I really like Odegaard. Don't get me wrong. I think of the three, I think he has the most potential. However, right now there's still not a lot of end product, and I'm going to have the same criticism I have for Johnson and Tell, and I'm going to be fair, even though I like the guy, still not any better end product than that is. Like that for me, that's why I would have been open to loaning him or Matisse Tell this January if we got in another winger, because I just don't see a lot of end product. Like there's a lot of getting on the ball, taking on the man, exciting, but when you don't have the end product, it becomes very, very boring and that to watch after a while.
You would probably assume though that as of right now, of the three that are actually tabbed to play that left side, that Odegaard's end product was better than Johnson and better than Tell at this point. I mean, it's not saying much, but I mean, as far as being able to take a man 1v1, you know, Odegaard is probably the one that's probably going to be more inclined to put something in the box versus a guy like Johnson who just wants to float to the post and you know, and literally does not want to challenge anyone.
Fair. Oh, it's Brad Matthews. Big up, Brad. Good to see you, man. YouTube's fucked me over. I had everyone's name. You knew a lot about these people. Now all of a sudden I'm seeing all these like handles and stuff, and I haven't a clue who people are anymore. They've really effed me over here, Brad. But good to see you, buddy, and hopefully you're keeping well. Soren dropping in here late. He's been busy in work today. Look, Soren, we'll get you straight into it. I mean, let's get on to how we're going to set up today. I mean, how do you think Spurs are going to approach this game tactically at the Etihad? You know, do you think we're going to sit deep and counter or go to toe with City like we did against PSG? And Thomas Frank has already shown his technical sort of flexibility, 4-3-3 against Burnley. I know we scored 3 and kept a clean sheet, but they still had 14 shots on our goal, and I'd argue better teams with the breakaways they had would probably punish us. So, I mean, where are you at? How do we set up against Man City today? Do we revert back to the 5-3-2 today and sort of limit their spaces to playing, Soren, or do you think we should go toe-to-toe?
Whoa. What's the laugh for, big bro?
Because J Mac in there he says morning again, Drew.
I love how this is popping on. This is becoming a thing.
I quickly ran upstairs to see if I could find it, and I couldn't. So,
do you have the black jersey? No, have you got the black jersey? Throw that on, no.
Yeah, it's not a proper one. But yeah, it looks similar. Let's just say that. Yeah, I think we'll go to a back five. Paulinho sat in front of them, and good old Richie up front. I don't know who the midfield will be. Probably
who gets sacrificed in the forward line then today? Johnson, Kudus, or Richarlison? Because look, Johnson scored the other day. Richarlison scored 2. Kudus set up 2. I mean, if we are going with that, one has to drop out of the forward line. So who misses out then?
Well, Richarlison's starting. He's starting in the number 9 spot. I mean, we've already had Thomas Frank. Was it yesterday? Came out and said he's his number 9.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, I get why he said it, and obviously the thing that to me tells me he's his first choice, because he could have just come out and said, "No, Rich is one of our players, and he's at the club." He came out and said he's his number 9. That for me, that's backing it. That's telling us he was not in with those deal for Eze at all. I think that was just a rumor that was put about to upset things. Who's going to play? I don't see Johnson starting. I obviously Kudus is being
sacrificed.
Kudus is fit still, isn't he? Because I'm sure I heard something the other night saying he'd got a knock or something, but I haven't seen anything since. No, it could.
Not today.
I could have misheard something. It could have been totally, but I haven't heard anything since. So it was like, well, did I read it, or did I hear it, or was it my imagination? I don't know. But I mean, he's virtually first name on team sheet at the moment. So who's going to play left though?
Well, if you're playing 5-3-2, then you don't need any. You're just playing 2 up top, right?
Yeah, you're playing 2 up top.
If we play the 5 in the middle, though, doesn't it? Because we could just put Paulinho in there and then a Bentancur or a Papsar.
Yeah,
and
I think that would be the midfield 3.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect a mid 3, but I don't know. I just wouldn't be surprised as well as if we still play kind of like a front 3, but expect them to drop back. I think there's so many permutations until we see Frank for 4-6 months. We're not going to know all the systems he's going to play for us.
Is there any chance that Thomas Frank surprises us and does something different again today?
Well,
I mean, everyone's expecting us to revert back to what we've done against PSG, but I mean, I presume Thomas Frank has a tactics book the size of an NFL fucking player book, to be honest with you. So is there a case where he actually surprises us and does something completely different again today?
We were joking about in one of the groups. Yeah, we were joking in one of the groups, and we said it'd be 7 defensive players plus a back 3 plus a goalie. Just basically park the bus, but I don't think he'll do that. I think we'll definitely. I'd be surprised if we don't go with that back 3 and Paulinho just to be quite strong. But this is what we said the other day, that it's all about getting a little bit of a memento going. And today's game for me is one of those games where we've always said we do well against City. And, we kind of expect, but even if we do lose today, as long as the performances are showing us we're moving on, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But I could see us getting a draw today.
I'll take it now.
I would. And I do think the days, when we're under Postecoglou, there was no such thing as a draw, was there? Did we actually ever draw a game with Postecoglou?
I think there might have been one. I think the last parts of last season,
we either won or we lost, didn't we? Whereas I think with Thomas Frank, I think we'll see a lot more 1-pointers. I do. But obviously,
and at the end of the day, they all add up at the end of the season. You know what I mean?
Exactly. 1 point's better than none, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, it's not a disaster if we don't win today. I think we'll go for the point, and I think Thomas Frank will be very happy to walk away with a point, and it keeps us unbeaten for the season. just keeps that momentum starting to build and confidence getting into the squad. And yeah, I think I'm as long as it's not a shit game, as long as we show some fight and we show as though we look as though we know what we're doing. I mean, the only thing I would say when we played PSG, that first 80 minutes, 75 minutes, we looked really good. We looked organized. The last 10, 15 minutes, it was literally just do what you've got to do to stay in the game. And don't want to see that for 90 minutes. Don't mind the first bit where we're defending and we're defending well and we're organized. I don't want to see it's like all hands on deck, just batten down the hatch.
This is where my concern comes in about this game today, because no doubt about it, them tactics work for 75, 80 minutes. But as soon as we took off Kudus and Richarlison, we had no one up there that could hold up the ball. Solanke wasn't holding up, Tell wasn't holding up, and then when you don't have a player holding up the ball, it's just coming one way. And naturally, as a team, you end up sitting deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's exactly what happened against PSG. My fear is we could look the same for 75, 80 minutes today. But are the players out? Do we have the options off the bench to maintain what we're trying to do? And this is the biggest problem at Tottenham Hotspur. The squad is never deep enough. So anytime a manager makes a change, people go mad. People like last year, people go, Postecoglou doesn't know how to use a bench. Are you going to say the same about Frank after the PSG game? I believe these managers know how to use a bench. But if players aren't coming in with the right mentality and willing to do the right job, what do you want them to do, to a large degree? And this is my fear today, that we could be in it for 75 minutes, but if it's a tight game and we make subs, which you're going to have to, are we going to be able to hold on to what we've got? I'm just not quite so sure. I need to see more from the substitutions coming off the bench today. I think last week, and this is where I think maybe Thomas Frank has learned these lessons. I think Bentancur and Paulinho came off as well. I think that's why they didn't play last week or start the game last week. I think they're in for a full 90 minutes today. I think Frank realizes I can't make substitutions in a game like this. I can't. So in games building up to these games, I'm going to have to rest certain individuals to make sure I can get them through the whole game. And I think we're entering a bit of a sticky situation unless we bring more players in the transfer market. But look, in general, in the way we set up today, I do think, when you go to the Etihad, I think you have to sort of be comfortable with playing a lot of the game out of possession, absorbing pressure, looking to hit on the counter. And I think today going with the 5-3-2, I think is the right move. I think you are going to have to sacrifice, what would you call it? I don't really want to call it attack and flair when it comes to Johnson. And I'm sorry, Drew, I know, but I don't want to call it attack and flair. I think that's too kind to the guy, but I do think you're going to have to sacrifice something attackingly and replace it with, something a bit more defensive, bring in Danzo, get the long throws, and actually go a little bit more direct against Man City, because I don't think we're good enough to play through them and rip them apart. But one thing I think we are good enough is win set pieces, win throw-ins, send everybody into the box. It's what we've done against PSG and worked an absolute treat. I would like to replicate that today. But then on the other hand, Drew, I'm sort of sitting there going, well, if we do set up like that, are we inviting too much pressure? Are we sort of almost suffocating ourselves to a large degree and setting ourselves up for the inevitable? Because some would argue fortune favours those who's brave. Ange went there last year, played a 4-3-3, bet them 4-0.
Or dairy es for Sarah, right? To dare is to do. I mean, what are we doing here? Do you know what? I think there is a formation. Hear me out. There's a formation where you can still have 5 at the back, but you could still play 3 up front at times. And you could do a 3-4-3, which becomes a 4-5-1 defensively. So there is the possibility that you can still have your wingers playing. I mean, it's interesting. I've got no idea how Frank's going to do it. And I guess this is one of the interesting aspects of this season, the fact that he does look at the opposition and change, whereas obviously last year it was we knew what we were going to do, or we knew what we were going to try and do. So I don't know. Here's the thing. Did we expect? I don't know how I'm going to say this. Did we expect anything else when we hired Thomas Frank as a manager, that we might go into games like this? And
no, I think you're right. I think when we hired Thomas Frank, I think everyone was expecting to maybe set up a bit more with a bit more control. It's defensively solid. I think you're sort of expect that when you brought in Frank, right? Is that what you're sort of alluding to?
Yeah, I mean, we're just, I don't know if that's being really, really harsh or doing him a disservice. But I mean, in the times where admittedly, it was just highlights or I'm just sort of memory recall. But in the times where he went up there and got a result, like the one that stands out is the one, I think it was 2-0 where Tony scored. And they basically just set up, my understanding was they sort of set up to soak up pressure and hit them on the break. And that's kind of, when you're Tottenham Hotspur going away to somebody like Man City, I feel like that's the way you should look to play. I don't necessarily know. I think it's a bit naive to just go, oh yeah, let's go toe to toe with Manchester City. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know.
No, that's fair. I mean, that's fair.
People in the chat are obviously saying we shouldn't be playing for a draw. We should be playing for a win. So there's your team list. Where's the creativity in there?
Well, it also looks like we've gone for a back four here, you know, with this team list. Yeah. Let's go through them.
I really wish that they'd done it numerically, didn't they? It froze me through 6 years.
Yeah.
Richarlison and Romero is your back two. Come on now.
This number bollocks. I mean, just put it out of what it is. But look, we'll go through the lineup and we'll come back to Soren. I mean, let's take this quick from El Tal. Big up, Jose. Good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. He says, morning, gents. Let's all enjoy the performance. Now, big up, Jose. Look, I'm absolutely pumped for today's game. It's a bit weird because I'm a lot more negative and cynical around Tottenham in terms of the transfer window. But I'm actually a bit more confident going into games this year. It's a bit of a weird situation to be in. But, Jose, big yourself up and keep plugging away at the content, my man. I do tune in. I tune into a lot of people on the silent when I'm sitting here doing stuff. So big up, Jose. Keep up the good work, my man. Big yourself up. Look, let's go through the lineup and let's get the boys' thoughts on it. I mean, Vicario starts in goal. Jed Spencer go at left back. Pedro Porro at right back with Van de Ven and Romero as your two centre-backs. Of course, Romero captain the side. Then you go into midfield. You've got Sarr, Bentancur, and you've got Paulinho. And then you've got Johnson off the left, Kudus off the right with Richarlison down the middle. So it looks like he's retained his 4-3-3. I mean, we'll come back to you, Soren, but then I also sort of want to pivot back to Drew, because I mean, we were just saying that we didn't think he was going to go 4-3-3 and sort of go head to head with Man City. So it's an interesting choice. I mean,
it's a 4-2-3-1.
Sorry, what's your thoughts on this lineup?
It's 4-2-3-1.
I mean, it's not so much going head to head in the sense because it is still quite a you've got a pretty defensive midfield in there.
Yeah.
You're playing Paulinho, who's going to obviously play that number 6. So you've got the defense in there. You've got perhaps Sarr, who's going to run around like a headless chicken in a good way, before anybody says I'm slating him, in a good way.
My boy.
I'm not slandering. I love the lad. I think he's a fantastic player. But, you know, the amount of ground that lad covers is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you've got, who am I looking for now? Bentancur. Yeah, Bentancur in midfield. He's the one that's probably going to be giving us the playing. But he's not a massively creative player, is he? He's a box to box runner type thing, but you wouldn't.
He's so much better at transitioning the ball from the back line to the forward line rather than picking passes for the forwards to get onto.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he's not that creative number 10 player, really, is he? But this is why I'm saying, you know, going into a game like Man City, a draw is not the end of the world. I'm not saying that's the only score that I want to see. Obviously, we all want to see Spurs go and beat City. It's what we do. They'll be sat in the changing room saying, "Oh fuck, it's Tottenham again, lads." But look, you know, we've got no Maddison, we've got no Sonny anymore. We've got no creativeness in the midfield, so it's going to be a compact game. We'll be looking to score maybe 1, maybe 2 goals and keep them out as much as possible. But we will play a lot of this game in our own half.
Yeah.
So, you know, where people think we should be running at City, I don't think we've got the team and the players today to go and do that. I think we've got to be solid. We've got to play as a team, and we've got to make sure we don't get beaten before we make sure we go and win it.
100%, absolutely 100%. Look, I agree with you. I think even though we are playing a 4-3-3, I think you're going to have a lot of work to do out of possession. But, you know, interesting keeping the 4-3-3. Maybe Thomas Franks thinks we are good enough to soak up the possession and hit them on the counter with the 3-4 players. Interesting. But, I mean...
Is City's team sheet out?
I'll go and get it for you now and have a look.
Playing?
I'll have a look. I'll let you know now. I think he's injured, isn't he? Pep Guardiola, he doesn't want to say him. He's injured, isn't he? So he shouldn't be in the team sheet. If he is, you know, I think someone needs to grab Pep and give him a fucking nugget on his bald head. But Demon says, please someone tell me why Johnson is playing. Surely he's the worst player in the club's recent history. Look, Sales, I'm not a big fan of Brennan Johnson, and it's not because of the type of person he is. I think great person. He just irks me as a player. I just think he doesn't. I would like to see the kid do a hell of a lot more and affect games and a lot more. But someone sort of said to me the other day, Davis, what's the point in wishing for more? He is what he is. He scores goals. Accept him on that sort of value, which I think is a fair point, but I still expect more from my winger at the end of the day. But look, we've got Johnson's, you know, house resident expert in the house in terms of Drewski. So, I mean, Drewski, why do you think Johnson has kept his place in the team today? Because we can sit here and moan about what he doesn't bring, but at the end of the day, he selected. Thomas Frank sees something. Why is he selected? What am I missing?
Mate, I'm going to say the same thing I said last night, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, everyone.
Well, but there's last night. So.
Well, there's a reason that the last 3 or 4 coaches or managers or whatever have kept Ben Davies. And I can only imagine that it's the same reason that Johnson gets playing time, because for some reason, I mean, you can't, you know, you can't take away the fact that he does put the ball in the back of the net, regardless of the fact that he appears to not do much else. But I don't believe he would be on the football field for as long as he is, football pitch, fucking America. I just don't see him being on the football pitch for as long as he is if he's not doing something. He would get hooked for somebody else, unless we're saying that the people below him are so bad that he just gets minutes for the sake of it. Do what?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, and I think other people are asking the question. What is this something? Because look, someone like me, I don't see it, and I'm struggling to see it. But someone like you are a big fan of the guy, so enlighten us. What is that Frankie's seeing?
Big fan of the guy. I mean, geez, I don't have a poster of him on my wall.
Come on.
Do you know what? Do you know what it is? Do you know what I really like about him? I like the fact that the kid actually doesn't appear to give 2 shits about what we think.
Fair.
I like the fact that in the back end of last season, there were a couple of times, especially I think it was away at Bodo, where he got himself a yellow card that he didn't really need to get, but he put himself in there and basically told somebody to shut up and gave it a little bit of this.
Yeah.
I just think that there's something about him. And I think that with the amount of crap that he's had thrown his way over the last 18 months, to still sit there with a smile on his face, to go in there, to want to put the shirt on, to turn around and say that he absolutely loves this club. He loves he loves being here. I think for that fact on its own, he should get a little bit less shit than he does. Does he need to work on his game? Absolutely. Could he do with taking on his man? I've always said that from day one. Yeah. I've always said he's one.
I know I give you shit. In fairness, you are one of these where you do recognize where he needs to improve, and I'll give you that credit.
And I will say, I also think, and the more I watch him play, especially with the run and finish last week, I think he's an inside forward being played as a winger. And I think once Thomas Frank figures out exactly where is best for him, I think if you play him a little bit further in field and get him to run between the centre-back and the full-back into the channels, I don't know, man. I still think there's something there, and I still think there's a level that he could go to. Now, whether he has got the mentality to actually do it, I don't know, but I still think there's a level to unlock with this kid.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Do you know what he reminds me of? Remember that guy in the playground when everyone's playing and he'd just hang around the goals all lunchtime waiting for that tap in? That's what he reminds me of. And you're standing there going, yeah, but what else do you do? You know what I mean? That's exactly what he reminds me of. The guy that's just waiting there, tapping in. Thank you very much. Look how great I am.
Yeah. Have you seen
those? At the end of the day, I suppose within a squad, there's a place for it, right?
Have you seen those Instagram stories where they're going around and there's that one bloke on the 5-a-side pitches and literally all he does is stand near the goal and absolutely belt. That's Brennan Johnson. And, you know, when he misses, it's like, And when he scores, it's like the biggest thing in the world. That to me is Brennan Johnson.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm glad I found out what he is. The guy in the playground, the goal.
Yeah, there's value in it though.
Walks in off break, no holes in his trousers, shoes clean as fuck with 4 goals in his back pocket.
I'll tell you what, Dave. Don't let Drew tell you he doesn't like Brennan Johnson, because on the back of his truck he's got a big sticker saying "Honk if you love BJ."
Yeah. As long as he's going through the right area when he's got that sticker, he might get a few offers he might not want. Steve, what's your thoughts on the lineup? I mean, again, it's a surprise, right? I think many people were expecting us to revert back to a 5-3-2 today.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen as well too. I just thought, considering the firepower and the way that Pep Guardiola deploys his attack, I thought it would just be a far more prudent to set yourself up in a defensive shell. And then just use your high press just to create turnovers. But that being said, for me, the 2 players that I'm going to be looking at very much are going to be Polinia and Betancourt in that double pivot, right? Because if you were paying attention to City last week against Wolves, the way that they like to play is centrally, right? They only use their attack down the wing sporadically. They like to get the ball on Reinder's foot. In space, and so from that standpoint, I'm looking at those 2 to kind of keep that that top of the 18 a little bit clear, to the point where they're going to try to at least force City to play down the wings far more than they would like to, right? So for me, it's going to be Polinia and Betancourt, defensively more than the attack. But the question is what's this buildup going to look like? Where are we going to start that buildup? Is it going to be in the middle portion, or are we going to be starting in our own end? And then how is that going to translate, right? Is City going to take away the center of the pitch, and are we just going to be stuck on the wings, right? It's going to be quite interesting, right? And for me, I guess the question is what's this left side going to look like? Is this going to be a far more involved, or is this just going to be trying to force the issue down to Kudus on the right? So are we going to look far more one-dimensional, or are we going to actually have a little bit of a wide open attack? That's going to be the question for me. But that being said, it all starts. Me personally, again, I just think this is going to start more defensively as it leads to a little bit more counterattacking.
I think this is where Papamatta Sarr comes into though, and has a massive role. You're talking about where are we going to start our moves. You look at Papamatta Sarr, Europa League final, picked up the ball on the halfway line, ended up putting the cross in. Last week he turned over a number ball higher up the pitch, which means we're straight in on the back line. And I think this is where Sarr plays a pivotal role today, breaking out from that midfield, turning ball higher up the pitch and getting straight on Man City that way, rather than trying to play out the back and all the way through them. And I think that's where Papamatta Sarr is crucial today, his energy. Also, Polinia breaking up moves. I think the key to this getting a result today is that midfield. I think in years gone by, the midfield has been lightweight. Teams have just played through us, and it's been end to end.
Right.
I think today that midfield is key, being nasty, pulling down moves, just being shit houses, difficult to play against, harassing everything, also while not giving up too much space. I think the midfield, Polinia, Papamatta Sarr, are absolutely key in a game like today. I want to take Chickling's comment here. It says, Dave is a hypocrite, though. He moaned about Udebur having no end product, saying taking on a man with end product gets boring, but now saying Johnson isn't enough. Some would say it's a hypocrite if you listen to me just today, but if people have been listening to me for the last 2 years, why I'm not a hypocrite is because I don't think any of the options out left are good enough. I don't think any of them are the complete package. And for me, I think we need to go and sign a player out there that can take on his man with end product. And believe me, they are out there. We don't have to have one or the other. So that's where I'm not a hypocrite. I've constantly bemoaned about buying in the right quality players so that you see it reflected on the football pitch. So I get what you're saying to a certain degree, but if you've listened to me long enough, you'd understand it's not hypocritical at all. I don't fancy any of them. I don't think any of them are good enough for what we need. And I would sell all 3 in a heartbeat and replace them with 2 quality players. But I don't have that luxury, so I have to try and get behind one of them. So that's where I'm at. But guys, look, I suppose it's reaching 11:30. I know people want to go off and maybe get breakfast or have a little nap or do something before the game and get yourselves ready. So we're going to go get people's score predictions, plug whatever we need to plug in the chat. I'll plug the Two Boys channel in the chat there as well, Stateside Footy TV and Spurs Diehards. I'll get them in there for you guys. We'll start with you, Sarah, and work our way down. How do you see today unfolding? What's your score prediction, buddy?
Score prediction, I'm going to go 2-2, and it's very rare I come out with a draw prediction, so we're probably going to batter them 5-0. 2-2, I think it's going to be a good defensive display from us, an attacking onslaught from them, and I think we're going to stay fairly solid. It'll be 4 wonder goals, Richie scoring twice, shutting up the doubters. Brennan Johnson will have 2 assists just to keep Drew happy. And I think we'll see Paulinho getting stronger. Papsar will have a great game. Kudus will probably be a wonder as usual. And hopefully at the end of today, the fan base will be pretty much in a good, happy place other than the off the field rubbish. And yeah, let's hope if it's not 2-2, let's hope we can just manage to nick it.
Look, I also hope in the fact that it's an early kickoff. You know, sometimes you can catch these big teams cold. And one thing on the Thomas Frank is these fast starts at Brentford. If we could do another one today, I mean, he gives us every chance of trying to get something out of today's game. So, you know, let's see if we can start fast. But look, I'll take that point now, Saran. I'll take the point all day long. Just want to keep this momentum and keep building on it. Drewski, I mean, your channel's here, so while you're speaking, people make sure you get across and smash that subscribe button. How'd you see today unveiling?
I'm still not sure, you know. My head says one thing and my heart is very much telling me another, so I'm not sure. I do just want to give a quick shout out to Rain Man, because as soon as this dropped, the lineup, his response was no Eze today. Yeah, which is top tier banter as far as I'm concerned. I'm so here for it. I thought that was wicked. So a big up to you, especially because it did make me smile. You know what? My head says we're not gonna pick up anything, unfortunately, because I just think Rinders, Bob, Cherky, Mamouche, and Haaland might just be a bit too much. Although, here's the thing, like, arguably the strongest part of their squad is going up against the strongest part of our squad. So I don't know. I don't know. And, you know, Bob is still an unknown commodity. He still hasn't played that much. Cherky's new, although he does look...
He's a good player.
Yeah.
Technically, he's unreal.
See, this is the thing. I don't know. I could see them kind of popping off a little bit, but then also not being too good at the back. I could see us taking advantage. I don't know. I don't know. Now I'm changing my mind as I talk about it. My head says no. My heart says yes. And that's all I'm going to give you.
Look, these games against City are hard to predict, so I'm sort of asking the impossible. But guys, make sure you get over to Spurs Die Hard, smash that subscribe button. I was on there last night. You know, Drew and the boys run a fantastic show on a Friday evening, 10 o'clock, usually when, you know, a lot of other people are sort of finished and done. So if you are looking for extra content, or you're at home that time of the evening, you're looking for content, Spurs Die Hards is the place to go for that. So make sure you get across and smash that subscribe button over there and help the boys on their journey. Big up Dermotron with the super sticker. Really appreciate that, my man. Let me see what the super sticker is. Probably like Dermot sitting there in shades, or like Brennan Johnson. Or he's another Johnson fangirl, actually. Something to do with Brennan Johnson. Let me see what it is. Big up Dermot, though. No, he's just gone with the cheerleader.
Like where's he been?
Big up Dermot. He's gone with the cheerleader. Dermot, you're a hard man, you know, because he's telling me, oh, you know, I'm going to do my own thing going on We Are Tottenham TV, fine. And then he rings me the other day, Dave, I want to come back on the pre-match build-up. So, look, Dermot, we'll get you involved in the next one, my man. Big yourself up, buddy, and good to see you. Hopefully we can get a good win today and enjoy your watch-along, Dermotron. Last but not least, down to Stateside Footy, a.k.a. Steve, guys. His link is here as well. Please get over, smash that subscribe button. And really, I just want to say this again. Drew and Steve out of bed 4 a.m. to come here and do this show. And even these early ones, I keep saying to them, boys, you don't have to turn up. Have a line if that's what you feel like. But they want to be here. I really appreciate that, actually. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope you guys do too. And if you really do appreciate it, please get across and smash the subscribe buttons on their channels to say thank you. Because realistically, if they weren't here, it'd probably be me and Soren sitting here arguing all the time. So, I mean, make sure you get across and show them the love. But Stevie, how do you think today's going to unfold?
Yeah, well, you know, when the Irish Hotspur sends out the bat signal, man, you got to show up, right? So it's,
roll call.
It's not just respect for the show. It's also respect for the squad.
To be fair, though, if someone gave me the opportunity at 4 to stay in bed, I'd probably take it.
Yeah, you know, it is what it is, right? But I mean, it's the respect not only for your show and your fan base, but it's also for Tottenham Hotspur as well too.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And by the way, man, I hope your dad's doing well.
He's out of hospital now, which is good. You know, he's at home, happy as Larry again. Because my old dad hates hospitals. Like, you know,
I'm glad to hear that.
He would have rather sat there and died unless we made him went to the hospital. So he hates being there, but it's a good thing he's at home now, and he's at home today in his chair watching the big game today. So I'm buzzing for him.
Excellent, man. I'm glad to hear that, and I'm right there, right along with him. Right, you're gonna have to. I just don't do hospitals, but all right. So for this one as well too, last night I predicted a 2-2, and I'm gonna sit with that 2-2. I do believe that Manchester City's attack is going to be potent at times, where I think they're going to put a couple past. Now the question is whether that's going to come inside the 18 or outside the 18. That's yet to be seen. But I do think that I think their firepower is going to be so good that there are going to be opportunities for them to put the ball in the back of net. That being said, I also think that our counterattack is going to be good enough where we're going to put a couple through. I got goals coming from Papsar, and then I also have one coming off a set piece, and it's going to be Christian Romero scoring that goal to equalize, and this one finishes off in a 2-2 draw.
Look, I have a sneaky suspicion about Papa Matsar. Said it in my predicting lineup. You know, I think the bigger the game, the better the player. I think you look at big games against 100%. Man United, Man City. Papa Matsar showed up in them games, you know, and I don't think he gets enough respect put on his name in them games. Jed Spencer's another one I expect to show up defensively today. He rises to the challenge. I also have a sneaky suspicion about Richarlison maybe want to repay Frank for the vote of confidence today, you know, and again, set pieces. I think the good thing coming into this game is maybe under Postecoglou, and I know it's not a fair reflection because we slapped them up 4-0, but we're sort of one-dimensional. I think today we've got different avenues to go at City and try and, break them down and score goals and cause them threats. So it's not beyond the realms of impossibility that we get a result. At the end of the day, Guardiola's City side find it the hardest against Tottenham. They've got an abysmal record against us under Guardiola. We are their bogey team. And do you know what? I'm just hoping the early kickoff, it's hard to get past it down your throat at 8 a.m. in the morning. A lot of them Man City players are prima donnas. So I would argue if we can get at them with a little bit of aggression, unsettle them nice and early, this game is there for the taking today. Let's see how we start and approach this game. But I want to say a massive thank you to these three boys, even Soren. Flat out at work, problems at work. But as soon as he's home, he's straight on. So big yourself up, Soren. Really appreciate the dedication. Same to the two boys, again, up at 4 a.m. Again, really appreciate the dedication. To all you people at home, I know you've got families and stuff you need to do on a Saturday, and the wife needs to go shopping and all that jazz. But again, you choose to sit here and support this show and the stuff we say here and engage with us. So a massive thank you to you guys at home. A massive thank you to the people who have gone a bit extra today, the further mile. Ribsy, Hennessy, Joshua, Wayne Bonner, Brad Matthews, Jose, and Dermatron. Really appreciate the support, guys. It goes a long, long way, to keeping this channel alive and, trying to produce better content and stuff like that. So really appreciate it, guys. Go and get your drinks in the fridge. Have a nice cold bevy for the game. Get your sandwiches ready. I'll see you back here at noon for the kickoff. As always, come on, you Spurs. In Frank we trust.
Lizevsky forever.
Let's go, boys.